Hello, my name is John Reynolds. Welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with Richard Harpin. Richard is a serial entrepreneur, having started his first business aged 6. He's best known as the founder of HomeServe, which he started back in 1993 as a startup and sold for over $4 billion in early 2023. He's the owner of Checkertrade and the founder of Growth Partner, created to fulfill his passion for business and mentoring by helping entrepreneurs earlier in their journey and preventing mistakes he's made himself. Most recently, Richard has put together the 8 secrets to building a £1 billion business. They're clearly going to be well worth knowing, so let's get into it. Richard, thank you so much for joining me. I've been looking forward to this.
My pleasure, John.
Tell me, who is Richard Harpin?
Wow, to answer that in just a sentence, I would say a lifelong entrepreneur with a real passion for business that started from the age of 4.
Well, take me back to young Richard. I want to know the early influences and the who and the what that created the entrepreneur.
I was born in Huddersfield on a little cul-de-sac in West Yorkshire, and I remember to this day a helicopter landing in the garden of the big house at the end of the cul-de-sac. And my father lifted me onto his shoulders and we'd watch this helicopter landing. And I remember saying, "Dad, I want one of those one day." And he said, "Well, don't be in the civil service like me. You need to earn some money, run your own business." And that was my inspiration, age 4. I found out a few years later that it was Lord Hanson, the famous industrialist, that was flying in to have Sunday lunch with his parents, who lived in that big house at the end of the cul-de-sac. So he was my first influence.
So from there, the inspiration, what action did you take? What did you then implement to entrepreneurially go the route you've gone?
Yeah, I think the first one was the big family move. So my father got promoted in the civil service as chartered surveyor in Newcastle in the northeast. None of the family had ever sort of left West Yorkshire. And I remember my grandfather giving me a white rabbit. So as soon as I got to the northeast, I thought, I need to start making some money. How am I going to do it? And so I bought another rabbit and started breeding them and selling them. This was sort of age 5. Then I thought, I need to make money from the people that I've sold the rabbits to. It can't just be a one-off sale. So I set up a rabbit kennels. So when they went on holiday, then they brought the rabbit to me and I looked after it for the week or fortnight. So that was a sort of cross-selling opportunity, age 6.5.
So you're already thinking about how, I've made the first sale, how do I continue that? Brilliant. How was school for you? So you've got that entrepreneurial spirit. I can't imagine what you were like at school when people were trading cards and so on. You were probably trying to find out how to create the cards and then build the albums.
I was running sort of handheld fruit machines, a tuck shop from my locker. I remember my mother went to parents' evening and the chemistry teacher was talking about how badly I was doing in class and that I turned up late for class once because I came back in with the excuse that I'd been to see my bank manager. So this was age sort of 14 or 15 and I was paying in the checks from one of the businesses that I was running and she got sick of hearing from all these teachers that I wasn't doing that well at school and she said, "Well, you'll be a millionaire before you are." And the school teacher said, "I have no doubt."
Oh, I love that. What I love as well is your mum was behind you. So actually, in context of the traditional and current education curriculum, you weren't interested. And your teachers could see that you weren't interested, but you were already sort of creating someone that's gone on to be phenomenally successful. What's your thoughts on the current education curriculum and how it supports entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that I feel really strongly about. Number 1 is apprenticeships. And we've talked for far too long about we must send every school leaver to university, and it's wrong. What we should be doing is encouraging more apprenticeships. They're not the poor relations, they're the people that we really need that learn those skills that we need as a country, whether that is tradespeople that are on our Checkertrade network, working for HomeServe. We have our own apprentice training centre. We train our own gas engineers and other gas engineers in Nottingham. So a big supporter of that. We need to do more of that. apprentice numbers have dwindled. They should really be over 500,000 starts a year. That's where we should be getting to.
Why have apprenticeship numbers dwindled when learning from lived experience, learning from, and we're going to cover the whole kind of mentoring side of things, is a key part of you and what you do. Why have they dwindled when that's the best way to learn? And it feels like that's been championed a lot more now, rather than a Bunsen burner at school and algebra, which a lot of people won't go on and use.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the large employer apprentice levy was good intentioned, but it hasn't really worked. It's really the SMEs. We have over 5 million businesses in this country. Quite a lot of those are very small businesses that would like to take on just a single apprentice. But if there were 1 million of those businesses that all took on one apprentice, then that's a lot of opportunity. But they say, I really don't know how to find a school leaver that will be really good, that's in my local area that I can train up. How do I then put them into college so they can get the in-class skills? And how can I get a bit of financial support? So we really need to be channeling that effort into helping the SMEs to take on an apprentice, not big companies like British Gas and HomeServe, because we're doing that and we can do even more of that.
Interesting. So it's rippling it into more of a microclimate than the bigger picture. And how important is mentoring to you? And I want to flip that back to still the young Richard. Did you have someone that, for whatever reason, like the helicopter influenced you, perhaps on the shiny things and the lifestyle side of things? Was there someone that you saw, got to know, or wanted to kind of learn from at a young age that helped influence you?
So I had influencers like Lord Hanson, Richard Branson, obviously famous entrepreneur that I admired as I grew up. I think I was a bit late in taking on my first mentor.
Okay.
It was probably when I was about 27. And HomeServe was growing in America, but we wanted to grow faster. We set up there in 2003, got to about 2010, and I was thinking, who could help me really make the business big in the US? Came across this guy called Nigel Morris. He was unusual because he was the co-founder of Capital One, the credit card company, did it first in America and then launched in the UK. He was Americanized. He'd lived in Washington, DC for 18 years. I called him. I wrote to him. I sent him emails, a DHL, urgent, confidential. I'm a struggling British entrepreneur, want to make it big in America. Please can I have an hour of your time? No response. One evening, I called at 11 p.m., 6 p.m. East Coast time. He picked up his office phone. And I said, you don't know me, but I'm a struggling British entrepreneur trying to make it big in America. Please could I have 1 hour of your time? He said, persistence pays. And that's one of my values and behaviours today. I now remember you and all those letters and emails you sent. I'm really sorry. And I will give you an hour of my time next time you're in the US. I said, it just so happens, Nigel, I'm in Washington, DC tomorrow afternoon. And of course I wasn't. I got on the first flight out of Heathrow in his office by 2 p.m. the following day. He gave me 3 hours of his time.
That's such a great story. And there's tenacity, the persistence. It's such a key attribute. I love that. And so did that then open up a scenario where, one, you're learning from someone there, and now if you fast forward to how important mentorship is, you've wanted to give back. So did that experience highlight that for you as an important part of business, because you wouldn't have scaled it without that? That's really my question.
Yeah, I think there's a few elements. Number one is you should always change your mentor. So when you're looking for somebody else with new experience because you're developing your business, I bought the Checkatrade business at the end of 2016 and thought, this is a sort of online marketplace, but it's a bit analog. I don't know anything about digital marketplaces. Who are the businesses that I should really copy from and pivot? And identify TripAdvisor, identify Booking.com, Auto Trader, and Rightmove. And then much more easily, Steve Corfer, the co-founder of TripAdvisor, managed to go and meet him and get his advice. Jeff Kipp, who was the chairman but previously the chief exec of Booking.com, and then a guy called Scott Forbes, who was American chairman of Rightmove here in the UK, and picked their brains, and they really helped in developing the checker trade model and what we needed to do there. But then sort of more recently, and when I sold HomeServe, stepped down as a chief exec and moved into a non-exec chairman role, I thought, this is going to be really tough. How do I go from a hands-on, into the detail, hard-working, entrepreneurial chief exec to standing back and letting others really run the business?
Especially when it's your baby and you've come through that journey. That's I mean, I see that in a lot of what I do, and I think I've been guilty of that as well. And it's that whole, you don't want to let go. There's also ego involved in that as well. And I think a big thing I've just picked up on there, that vulnerability at 27 years old, and the choice to need help and go looking for it. Do you see in some entrepreneurs now that ego getting in the way at the detriment of the business, where, and something we talked about earlier, where you don't allow that vulnerability to come in, so you won't ask for help? What are your thoughts on an entrepreneur that would turn around and say, they might be looking for funding. I just need the funding, but I don't need any mentoring. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think the clever model is the two can come together.
Sure.
Getting some coaching or mentoring as well as investment. I believe in what Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, and went to him and got some mentoring and coaching, very lucky to do that. And he talks about level 5 leaders. They can often be quite introverted, low ego, hardworking, non-political, and curious, and wanting to seek help because they haven't got the answers. They're ambitious for their company, not for their own careers. So really, I'm looking for entrepreneurs that have that level 5 leadership characteristics. So anybody that was saying, well, I want your money, but I'm not interested in any of your help, and that is help and advice, it's showing, but it's not telling, then I wouldn't back them.
I thought you'd say that. And I think that's telling, because the opportunity could be incredible. And I think this is a really key part. And I think we're opening up a conversation here that really relates to the 8 secrets to building £1 billion business, which is something you kindly shared with me, and we're going to talk about a lot more now. And you talked about copy and pivoting, and I think that's something that I've struggled with, where you sort of feel like you've got to have your own ideas. Well, actually, if there's already a template in place and it can be relevant to what you're doing, that's key. The sort of coachment side of things, those advisors that came into Checker Trade, I mean, every single name you mentioned is incredible. You're only going to be better as a team. So the first one is character, personality. So on that basis of the entrepreneur that says, I don't need any help, you've actually eliminated that straight away. How important has been character and personality for you as an entrepreneur?
I think it's really important learning from others. I talked about some of those level 5 leadership characteristics. If you said, how important is the leader of a business relative to the business itself, I would say 60% it's the leader, 40% it's the business or the market. Because a leader that says, the reason why we're not performing is the economic climate, Brexit, COVID, you say, actually great leaders will turn every problem into a bigger opportunity, and they will find a way through that. And I genuinely believe that. So I want to back leaders, entrepreneurs that say, whatever the economic conditions, whatever the problem, they will find a way through. So that's why it's 60-40.
It goes back to tenacity. And actually, you've got a great story I know from the HomeServe journey, where I think, I'll let you tell it, where you were forced to pivot. I'm only talking to you now because I was forced to pivot because of how difficult and frustrating property development was. And in the end, I was just like, I want more fulfillment and I need to be doing something else. And then you pivot. But with HomeServe, you were trucking with that business. And then there was some legislation change or something that came out that you, a different entrepreneur, could have gone, that's us gone. But you actually reframed that.
I made so many mistakes in HomeServe, and but took a £50,000 startup with the wrong business model, which was emergency plumbers through Yellow Pages. The cost of Yellow Pages was too high, And yeah, the first secret of copy and pivot. And we're taught at school that copying homework is bad. But in business, if you can find a magic model and copy it, I'm a big believer in second mover advantage. Find an idea that somebody else has half proven and then copy it and improve. And that was a breakthrough in HomeServe. We went from a loss-making plumbing business losing £50,000 a month. Luckily by then, South Staffordshire Water were the investor and they put in £500,000. But I was running a business model and growing it where it wasn't the right business model. So you need to start small and copy and pivot until you've got the right model and then go big and borrow the money ideally at that stage or get an investor that will put in some equity funding. Copying the model was a little water company in Surrey called Sutton Water, and they developed a plumbing insurance scheme, £50 a year to cover the underground water pipe in people's gardens. And if it burst, there'd be a great fountain coming out of the front lawn, or there'd be no pressure or no water coming out the tap. And I remember sitting in the Holiday Inn in Sutton in Surrey in a focus group, interviewing some of those customers that had bought the product. And they said, why hasn't it got plumbing emergency cover or cover for my blocked drains? So we added those bits in with the final £10,000 of the water company money before HomeServe was going to be closed. We sent out 1,000 mail shots, branded as South Staff's Water with the membership proposition, and 38 people sent in the cheque for £50. I remember getting on my office desk in front of the 23 people that were about to be made redundant because the water company were about to close down the business because it was losing that £50,000 a month. And I said, yes, we've made it. And we had.
Well,
almost the rest is history.
Yeah.
We rolled out that product across 10 markets, including America becoming the largest market. I had some great chief execs, and they were the ones that really made the business, running their individual territories. And then, to cut a long story short, sold the business for £4.1 billion last year to Brookfield.
Yeah, and congratulations, excellent entrepreneur. And I love the fact that that caveat of selling the business for over 4 billion, it nearly didn't happen. There was a moment when you were probably visualizing the worst case scenario, and like you say, shaking hands with 23 people, and then you innovated, you pivoted. So again, congratulations. The scenario there where you've had so many obstacles to overcome, and going back to the 5-year-old entrepreneur where there were things you tried and then you failed and things didn't work. What's your relationship and experience with failure? Because clearly HomeServe is a massive success, but there must be other things you've done and tried that haven't worked. But what have you learned from them?
If I look back on that sort of 30-year journey in HomeServe, then the biggest thing I got wrong was trying to do too much. We'd got a really, really good membership model, take away the worry and inconvenience and big repair bills for home emergencies through an annual membership. And we should have just stuck to that and grown it even bigger and been in even more countries and with even more members. We've got about 8.5 million today and 10,000 staff, but it could have been bigger if we'd been more focused. I got into smart home devices, doing big repairs for home insurers following storm damage and break-ins. I bought a furniture warranties business. I'm a typical fox, always looking for the next opportunity.
But that's entrepreneurial as well, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit like the rabbit moving on to the vet, the sort of, not the vet, the holiday home and then the feed and so on. That's how your brain works. But right now, I guess you're saying you've got the maturity and perspective to go, actually, stick to a purpose.
Successful business is about the hedgehog going in a clear, methodical direction. If some entrepreneur says, oh, I've got these 10 ideas a day, put up your prickles and say no or not now. That's the importance of having a not to do list.
Which is one of the 8 secrets.
Just going to keep going with our vision, purpose and strategy and just do that.
It's great advice. And I think, again, as a fellow entrepreneur, I know, and you can get excited as well, can't you? Especially if something was working. You think, we could do this, we could do that, but actually it could be detrimental and a distraction to the business.
Yes.
The flip of you can't succeed without failing and trying things, and you know that. But sitting here now as an exited entrepreneur and with multiple interests going on around you, how do you define success?
I'd like to say success is anybody that can build a £1 billion business from scratch. That would be the ultimate success. There are 58 of those entrepreneurs in the UK today, and they've gone from startup, they're still involved in the business, they did it here in the UK, and they built a business that was worth £1 billion or more. So almost 8 secrets to building a £1 billion business. Well, HomeServe was a good example of that, but who else did it? And what can we learn from them?
Brilliant.
And do those 8 secrets apply to their business in the way that they apply to HomeServe? And after I'd sold the business, I looked back and said, oh, I'm so frustrated by all the mistakes I've made. And I'm excited by the 8 things that I know now that I wish I'd known at the start of my entrepreneurial journey.
And you're sharing them.
Yeah, and because if I had known those, I could have got there in 15 years, not 30 probably. So I don't want anybody to take the time it took me to build a £1 billion business. I want to help them to get there and to do it quicker. And that's why I'm putting some of my time into getting those messages out there. And that, it sort of came from, I don't often wake up in the middle of the night. And a number of years ago, I did. And it was a nightmare about, what if I wake up at 5:30 tomorrow morning, my normal sort of wake up time, and think, oh, I've been running HomeServe for 25 years, I'm bored. I didn't want to go from working flat out to doing nothing. So what if that happens, and what am I going to do? So I'm a bit slow on the uptake. I had to go to Harvard Business School for 4 days to think about what my career objective should be for the next 25 years.
So finding your purpose.
Yeah, and this was helping you to work out what your career objective should be.
I love that.
4 days, I could only come up with 2 words. But those words were inspire, breakthrough. And I think, John, if you went and talked to any of my chief execs, the 10 chief execs in HomeServe, and said, what did I add to the business? All I really did was challenge them and inspire them. And as a result, we achieved more as a team than we ever thought possible. So I thought, I've got it. I want to take those 2 words, inspiring breakthrough, which is now my clear purpose, and I want to see whether I can apply that in my non-HomeServe life. And thought, I want to do that in 2 ways. But I started a journey that goes back 8 years ago, having come out of Harvard Business School for those 4 days, and thought, I want to go and invest in other entrepreneurs at an earlier stage in their career. They need to be making money, because I'm a Yorkshireman, back to Huddersfield, and I don't believe in all these loss-making businesses. So I thought, any business that's making £1 million profit, I want to help them not to get to 5 million profit, but how do we create the next HomeServe? Really inspire that breakthrough growth.
And scale is clearly important for you on that basis. Yeah, okay.
And so that's what I've done with Growth Partner, my private investment business. And I thought, let's put some of my money where my mouth is. So I made a commitment that I would invest £100 million in about 10 amazing entrepreneurs. I've now done that. We've got 12 investments. I brought in a chief exec to run Growth Partner, great guy, Jason Mahendran. He's now got a team of 10 people that help him. And as a result of what we're achieving, I've committed another 100 million of my own capital to say, let's back another 10 or 12 entrepreneurs over the next 3 years.
It's brilliant. Do you know what is at the heart of this? Is along with the purpose. You could be sitting on a beach right now with a cocktail. You don't need to be doing this. You are brimming with energy and passion for this. But it's authenticity. the amount of venture capital companies are set up with the principal or principals that haven't actually started their own business, and they're lending money to entrepreneurs, brilliant entrepreneurs potentially, and they can't actually offer the leadership and mentoring that you do. So that's where I think for me, growth partner is brilliant, and you're walking the walk. You said it. There are people that are out there acting as mentors and maybe angel investors that just have made their money in different ways. They haven't come out of the roots, if you like, of entrepreneurship. So I think that's brilliant.
I think the important thing is that I've done it, and therefore I think I'm in a good position to back others and help them to do it. But the issue is that my money doesn't go a long way. So I want to have a bigger impact on this country than just backing 20 or 25 entrepreneurs. So I thought, if you look at the media, there's a lot of references to startups and SMEs, very little mention of the M of the SMEs, which is medium-sized companies. They're turning over £3 million. They're employing more than 15 people. And those are the businesses that will create our next £1 billion businesses. And nobody's really helping them.
Until now.
Until now. So I like numbers. So worked out and found out there are 110,000 of these medium-sized businesses. And do you know how many large companies we have in the UK as defined as employing over 250 people that actually employ 39% of our working population, which is 10.6 million people, and account for 53% of our exports? We only have 7,500 large companies. Doesn't sound many.
No.
But they are the heart to our prosperity. So all we need to do is convert 7,500 of those 110,000 medium companies to large companies, and then we've doubled the number of large companies, and we don't need to rely upon any government to help us to create that economic growth and prosperity. We can do it ourselves, and I want to lead on that. And
you are.
And that's why I've called it Business Leader. And I thought, well, how do we put it all together? And it's sort of learning as I go, testing and pivoting. And first of all, I thought, if I look back at the whole of my career, and I was an employee before I became an entrepreneur. I worked for Procter & Gamble in Newcastle upon Tyne as a brand manager.
How old are you at this point? I wanted to ask.
This was coming out of university, age 21. There were 13 graduates. I think 11 of the 13 were from Oxford or Cambridge. I only went to York University and somehow managed to get a place on brand management program in P&G. I was the marketing assistant on Fairy Liquid. That's why my hands are so stuffed. I remember the ad, Mile Green Fairy Liquid. And it was a most wonderful experience. 3.5 years of learning on the job, socializing and talking about business outside of the office with a peer group of 12 others. And that's the bit that I've missed. Even where I've had a board of directors as a FTSE 100 company that HomeServe was, even having great chief execs and 10,000 people in the business, it can still be really lonely at the top.
That's the word. It's a conversation I'm having more and more, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because as an entrepreneur, the decision-making process that you can, and CEOs as well, I think, very much in that role where the decision-making is on them. They're leading the company and they feel they're on their own. And I could be having breakfast, lunch and dinner meetings and Zoom calls all through my day, but I'm not actually having the conversation at some point in the day, like you were having with those fellow colleagues, where you're asking questions and you're getting bouncing ideas and feedback from people around you. So that importance of community, I'll put my hand up now and say I'd love to be part of the community you're building, that sort of value add, and be part of eliminating that loneliness, because I think that's what you're creating.
So I'm sort of trying to put it all together as I go and take the highs and lows from the whole of my life, from my career. So number one was, how do we replicate that Procter & Gamble peer group? And we're doing it in Business Leader by setting up peer groups that would be 10 entrepreneurs and chief execs in a local area, so all around the country.
Sure.
With a facilitator, so that's a coach or mentor with business experience, trained as a coach, that will help that group of 10 entrepreneurs and chief execs to get the most out of their 8 meetings a year. They meet for 3.5 hours. And everybody in that room are at different stages of growing their medium-sized business into a large one. And a lot of the answers will be there. Somebody's done it. They've conquered that one of the 8 secrets, so they can learn from each other, then apply the 8 secrets framework. And then, so that's a key part of the model. And there are membership organizations, but they tend to be American. And I love the Americans, but we can do it better with a British mentoring organization, Business Leader. So that's really important. I also look back on university, my 3-year economics degree. And what do you think was the bit that I most learned from? It wasn't the economics degree. It was being a member and then leading the Student Industrial Society. We went down a coal mine in Selby. We went round the Buxted chicken factory. And then we went to Sam Smith's brewery, although that's a visit I don't remember too much about. But
bit fuzzy.
You know what I mean? Sort of,
Yeah.
You're getting under the bonnet and learning about how real businesses operate. So a key part of the Business Leader model and part of the membership proposition is called Under the Bonnet. And every month there will be a really interesting business that members can go out and see, meet the founder or chief exec, get a tour of the factory or a discussion with the marketing team, and really learn about a business that's in a parallel sector to the one that they're running.
It's real life. It's the lived experience rather than sitting in a classroom, learning it out of a textbook. Yeah, because I can't imagine it at university. And actually, what I love as well is the fact that because I meant to ask you earlier if you'd ever been employed, because you're such a serial entrepreneur. But actually, you probably, without even realising, you said those 3 years I learnt on the job. You would take it. So it feels to me like you were never ever lining up employment as a role. You were like, what can I get out of this in a very productive way to take this into the things that I do, which of course you've done. You mentioned earlier that you sort of wake up at 5:30. I want to bring that conversation to, there's a lot talked about in podcasts and books where successful CEOs and entrepreneurs are up at the crack of dawn. They run a marathon, they've read a book, they've meditated by the time it's 9 o'clock. Where do you sit with that? And throughout your career as well, have you always been an early riser and win the morning, win the day? Is that something that works for you?
Yeah, I'm an early morning person. So now I'm no longer a chief exec, then I give myself the benefit of not getting up until 6 o'clock.
Yeah, okay.
When I'm in London 3 days a week, then I bought a house right next to a gym and swimming pool. So it's a 4-minute run to the gym. And so I spend sort of the best part of an hour in the gym and then come back and a little bit of breakfast before I'm in the office at sort of 8 o'clock. So I think it's really important to establish routines. I think it's really important to think about personal effectiveness. And a couple of good examples would be, how do you, the 4-quadrant time management model. One of those boxes is important but not urgent. How do you plan into your working week? And whether that's first thing in the morning, last thing in the afternoon, or a Friday, the time that you need to be thinking, or going out and visiting stores, or going and spending time listening into your call center. The stuff that's not the sort of urgent and important, the day-to-day emails and meetings, and you've got to find that quality time.
So prioritizing is key.
Yes.
And
having the not to-do list. Everybody puts their hand up and says, I've got a to-do list, but not many put their hand up and say, these are the things that I'm not going to do, so I can focus on just the important stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of distractions. There's always been distractions, but with social media in particular now, which is a whole nother conversation with, kind of scrolling and so on, but just being disciplined and sort of managing that. And actually that brings up, not just the physical side, so the gym's important to you and so on, but self-development. We talked about it from a mentoring point of view, but how have you prioritized your own kind of mental health, if you like, and self-development? Because that kid that bought the rabbit and then was like bright-eyed and where can I go from here? Have you always maintained a desire to be curious and learn?
Yeah, I think it's sort of inherently in some people. I want to learn something new every day, and then make sure I'm taking the time to take time out to do some proper training. So a good example in going through that transition from chief exec to non-exec chairman in HomeServe, and I would describe that as evolution rather than revolution. So I didn't want to take all my money and run off into the sunset. HomeServe now is probably in its most exciting chapter under Brookfield's ownership, but wanted to get that evolution, but thought, I'm going to find it really hard becoming a chairman. So I thought I'm going to sign up to INSEAD to go on train to be a proper business coach. That was a 12-day commitment over last year. And that's really, really helped me to take a bit of time out of the business to get my business coaching qualification and combining that with the mentoring bit. And the mentoring is all of those mistakes and experiences that sit at the back of my head in my tiny little brain, combined with business coaching, which is about asking lots of questions and helping the person that you're coaching to come to their own decision based around setting options, teasing more information out of them. And that's where I developed coachment. So use the coaching, that's the sort of, in medical terms, that would be the X-ray, the diagnostics, before you then have the consultant to say, in my experience, this is what you should be doing based upon that X-ray. So that's the magic model in combining the two.
You articulate that really well, because I think, I've used this word already, I think, vulnerability. You sold the business for 4.1 billion and you go on a coaching course to educate yourself to be right for the role that you know you want to do. There's so much humility and vulnerability there. And I think if someone watching this, listening to this, and is aspiring to be in your position and to be successful in their own business, that's what I think is needed. And that also taps into the mental health conversation as two men talking to each other, where I think in previous times, ego would have stopped that. I don't need to do that. And I think you've just said HomeServe is flourishing as a result. And I think that there's some really important messages there. Sitting here now with all this perspective and maturity, and still very current and relevant in so many different businesses, what advice would you give to a young Richard starting out in the kind of late teens, early 20s entrepreneurial stage, where you've got that knowledge now? And I know that we could flip that back to the 8 secrets. It's the reason why. But if you could just say one thing, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't try and do too much. Do one thing really, really well. And if you want to, if you catch yourself trying to think, I need to do more to expand the model quicker, think about how you channel that effort into just doing what you're doing.
I love that. Richard, I have learned so much from you. There's so much more we could talk about, but we're going to run out of time. But what you're doing, how you're doing it, I've got so much respect and inspiration from you. So thank you for making time to talk with me.
My pleasure. And I think if we were sort of, if I said, what's the one thing that I can look back at in 5 or 10 years' time and say, I've managed to double the number of large companies in this country. And through Business Leader and getting lots of entrepreneurs to join up to that membership program, I can look back with them and celebrate what we've achieved.
Yeah,
and for me, that's much better than running off to a desert island.
Because that's exactly, I was going to say, I can't ever see you retiring. You might be not as crazy busy as you were a few years ago, but that glint in your eye, that purpose, that passion to achieve that. I mean, I'm not going to bet against you. I'd love to help you with that. retirement doesn't even factor. So right here now, you're probably less busy than you were in the trenches as a younger entrepreneur, but how have you managed to balance family, work, and kind of time for yourself?
Yeah, actually, I would say I'm busier now than I've ever been, and making sure I'm juggling my time to fit in with the three big responsibilities. So that's chairing HomeServe and the related businesses like Checker Trade, and backing those chief execs that are running amazing businesses and just helping them and giving them a bit of advice, and that's going really, really well. It's really exciting. And the big bit there is we're on a mission to decarbonise homes across Europe. And that's really important.
Yeah.
We look at climate and think the biggest cause of that climate change is heating in people's homes. So we've got to be installing hybrid systems, heat pumps, solar panels, battery storage, and that is what HomeServe's doing. So it's a real purpose that I want to continue backing. Then we've talked about growth partner and backing and mentoring and helping in those businesses that I put my own cash into. And then the business leader piece, getting those messages out to that wider audience. But then family is really important. So my number one priority is, even though my kids are now 19, 22 and 24, spending as much time with them as I possibly can. So I have a rule: we don't have presents in my household in terms of material gifts. We have experiences.
I love that.
So that means the only drawback to those experiences is they've obviously got to take me. So when my daughter Jemima was 21, the present was horseback riding, horseback safari in Botswana.
Did she choose that, or was that
she chose it?
Yeah.
And that was an amazing week. I'm a rubbish horse rider. I don't know how I managed to stay on galloping through water, chasing elephants and rhinos. Amazing. And her and I, plus her best friend. And for my two boys, my 18-year-olds at the time and 21-year-old, it was riding off-road motorbikes in the US on Ted Turner's estate. 2,000 miles of dirt tracks. This was a Wild West, and that was amazing. We covered 100 miles a day on motorbikes, saw ex-gold mines, cowboy towns, just an amazing mix of riding, falling off, and the history of the Wild West. And
importantly, memories. You're beaming, smiling, because you've got the connection with your family. And you've got memories and experiences that no present's going to even come close to replicating. We talked about the 8 secrets a few times. We haven't touched on the importance of replacing yourself and at the right time. What's your experience of that?
I think in many ways, John, that's the most important secret. If I look back, it took me 8 years before I hired my replacement. And that was giving a guy that had worked for me for a year, that I'd met outside of work. I thought, this is a smart guy who works for Boots in Nottingham. Wrote his name in my black book because I used to do all my own headhunting through word of mouth. Saved up for 6 months to have the courage to afford to hire him. Brought him in as business development director for the UK. And after a year, I thought, I think this guy, Jonathan King, could do a much better job at being MD of HomeServe UK when we were only a UK business. So I had the courage to give him my job. That then meant that I could work on the business rather than in the business, and started thinking about how we could develop HomeServe in a foreign country, starting with France. So I found that really difficult. But I look back and think, why did I wait 8 years?
But you're in the trenches. It's a control thing, right? You've created that business, and at what point does that entrepreneur in the place you're in know when to leave? Now you should have left, and you can impart that on to the entrepreneur. And of course, you've invested 100 million into these 12 companies. Are you having that conversation early with the entrepreneur? Because that's really important, right?
Great.
And these people they've got to embrace it. Are you aware that I'm going to tell you, or not tell you, I'm going to work with you?
A great example is Craig Waddington. He runs a fantastic business called Easy Bathrooms that I've invested in. In fact, I've invested twice. Put in £6 million originally, and then thought this is going really well. He needs more money to grow even quicker. And put another £6 million in. And about a year ago, when the start of the 8 Secrets came out, and we run an annual retreat in Growth Partner, and Craig was there, and we were talking about secret number 5, finding your replacement. And I could see in the room, he looked really uncomfortable. And I thought, it's going to take me a bit of persuasion, and I'm not going to tell him. It's his business. I'm a minority shareholder, and that's important, but I need to try and help him and show how it could be really effective. And guess what? 3 weeks ago, Adrian Burlton was appointed as the chief exec of Easy Bathrooms. Adrian is fantastic. He ran a business called Studio Moderna in Eastern Europe, grew it from 200 million euros of revenue to 500 million, and from about 5 million euros of profit to 30 million, looking for a new role. And we interviewed him, came and did his final interview to Craig and his management team, and we hired him.
Brilliant, I love that story.
And Easy Bathrooms is doing well. It's doing 100 million of revenue. We've got 139 branches open compared to the 40 that we had before I invested. But the combination of Craig now being the executive chairman, so he's going to still work full time in the way that I have, and Adrian in there doing the day-to-day chief exec role. That's a magical combination of keeping the entrepreneur, having a really successful paid chief exec that's done it before, and I think, wow.
I love that, and I can tell again, beaming, you're smiling because you know it was the right thing to do, but it's not for you to say. But you come from that kind of grey-haired experience and mistakes you made where you didn't remove yourself at the time because no one was there to tell you, right?
And
so
it
you're
took
there
me a year, and I'm. If you said what are my really bad traits, and I've got lots of them, I'm not very patient. So to be able to constrain myself and say this is going to be a journey, but we got there.
Yeah, you did. Now, thank you for telling that story. So again, thank you, Richard.
Thank you, John.